Hi everyone, and welcome to Horror Spectator. If you're new here, consider subscribing. We explore the darkest, most chilling real-life horror stories. If you're a returning viewer, glad to have you back, friend. Your support truly means the world. There's something uniquely unsettling about road trips through remote areas. The vast, empty highways, the endless forests, and the isolated gas stations create the perfect backdrop for something to go terribly wrong. Many people set out on these journeys seeking adventure, freedom, or solitude. But for some, the road leads straight into a nightmare. In this video, we're exploring two harrowing accounts of road trips that took a terrifying turn. One involves a solo traveler who thought she had found the perfect hidden camping spot, until a passing van made her realize she was being watched. The other follows a man whose journey through a remote desert road led him to a discovery he was never meant to see. By the end of these stories, you may think twice before taking the back roads alone. Remember, viewer discretion is advised. Everything started with an idea, exploring a part of Utah called Dark Canyon. Even though I had lived in Utah my entire life and loved taking road trips, I had never explored that area before. The story I'm about to tell happened in 2016, at a time when I had just quit my job and needed some time to figure out my next steps. Driving and hiking had always been good for me, so on April 15th, 2016, I planned a 9-day road trip through that region. The trip started going wrong from the very beginning, almost like every sign was pointing at me not to do it. But I was determined. If there's one thing about me, for better or worse, it's that I'm stubborn. About an hour into the drive, my rear tire blew out. Fixing it set me back 2 hours. Later on, I missed an exit and had to take a massive detour just to get back on track. Like I said, it felt like everything was working against me. Luckily, on the second day, things started looking up, and my mood improved a bit. This was also when the best parts of the trip began. Roads lined with trees, or stunning overlooks of breathtaking landscapes. It wasn't until the fourth day that everything took a turn for the worse. And this time, it wasn't just a flat tire. It was something much darker, something I still can't explain. I had eaten lunch and had been driving for about 2 hours when I started feeling the urge to pee. I kept going for a while before finally deciding to pull over. And this is where things get strange. Out of all the places I could have stopped, why there? There was nothing, absolutely nothing on that road. I'm not someone who really believes in fate or coincidences, but the fact that I chose that exact spot to stop is just bizarre. Every time I think about it, every time I replay it in my head, it makes no sense. Anyway, back to the story. I pulled over to take a bathroom break, and the spot was as good and as empty as any other. I stopped the car, opened the door, and walked a little toward the trees. That's when I heard a sound, like faint music in the distance. Was someone else out there with me? It sounded a lot like a phone ringtone. I looked in the direction of the noise, walked a little closer, and then I saw them. Two men, both dressed in green. It looked like some kind of uniform, carrying what appeared to be a rolled-up rug over their shoulders. Where had they come from? There wasn't a single car on the road. I watched them walk, still thinking of innocent explanations for why they were out there and what the hell they were doing. Then, I saw them stop, drop the rug on the ground, grab shovels, and start digging. That was the moment when it hit me. Whatever was happening there was very, very wrong. Something sinister was going on, and the only thing I could do was take note of the location and get out of there before they saw me. I turned around and started walking back toward my car, slow and careful. I was far enough away that they wouldn't hear me, but I still made sure to be as quiet as possible. Then, as I reached my car, every ounce of blood in my body turned ice cold. A man, wearing the exact same green uniform, was standing right next to it. I didn't have time to hide. He saw me as soon as I saw him. He must have caught some kind of expression on my face, because the moment we locked eyes, his own expression went completely unreadable. I tried to stay as calm as possible, convincing myself that I hadn't actually seen anything. I acted startled, as if he had just scared me by being there, then casually asked if everything was okay, if he needed any help. He said no, that his car was a few minutes away and he had just stopped to stretch his legs. When I tell you that this was the strangest interaction of my life, I'm not exaggerating. It was like we were both playing a game of make-believe. We both knew the other was hiding something, or at least suspected it, but we pretended we didn't know a thing. I said goodbye, got into my car, and drove off as quickly as I could. It took a few minutes for my pulse to return to normal. I told myself I'd think things through before calling the cops. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe everything was fine. At some point, I realized a car had been behind me for a while. That's when I started getting paranoid. Were they following me? Was I just imagining things? I decided to speed up, then took a turn onto a side street and quickly pulled into a parking lot. I had just reached a small town, and there were plenty of other cars parked there. A few moments later, I saw them make the same turn. But instead of stopping, they just kept driving down the road. The second they disappeared around a corner, I turned my car back on and got back onto the main road. After a while of not seeing that car anymore, I finally started to relax. The good news was that I was finally arriving at the hostel where I had booked a room. A good night's sleep was exactly what I needed. I checked in, paid for one night, and went to my room, picturing myself having a quiet evening and getting some food. But it was 2 a.m., and I still couldn't sleep. The image of those men in the woods wouldn't leave my head. The more I thought about it, the more convinced I was that they had been up to something seriously wrong. Since I couldn't sleep, I decided to get up and take a short walk in the hostel courtyard, maybe grab a snack from a vending machine. And that's when I froze. Parked across the street from the hostel was the car. There was no doubt. It was the same license plate, but it was empty. There was no one inside it, nor around it. I looked around, suddenly feeling trapped. Not only had those men been doing something seriously messed up in the woods, but they knew I had seen them. And now, they were following me. I rushed back to my room, threw my stuff together as fast as I could, peeked out to see if anyone was in the parking lot, then ran to my car and got out of there. I knew they had probably seen me, that they'd probably follow me again. I floored the gas pedal, made several quick turns, and finally got onto the highway to put as much distance as possible between me and them. When I finally started feeling safe again, I called the police. At first, they didn't seem to take me too seriously, but when I gave them the license plate number and they found out the car had been reported stolen 4 days earlier, things changed. They asked me to file a report. The car was later found abandoned on a back road, just 12 miles from the hostel. As for the spot where the men had taken the rug, nothing was found. Just a patch of freshly dug earth, with nothing inside. Eventually, the case was closed, and I never heard anything about it again. Last year, I did something I had done countless times before. I got into my adapted van-style truck and drove part of the Appalachian route, starting in the North Woods of Maine, all the way south to Georgia, where my cousin lived. Whenever I can, I take this route. I love the Appalachians. Better yet, I adore the Appalachians. But I never had anyone who wanted to join me. As a woman, something tells me not to hike the trails alone and to take every possible precaution. That's why my van gives me a sense of confidence, even though, As I found out last year, it's a false sense of security. While you won't earn the same kudos driving as you would by walking, I think the scenic roads come close to paralleling the pedestrian route, taking you through the almost continuous natural beauty without the sweat, blisters, and sometimes wild encounters. Best of all, this driving route follows magnificently scenic two-lane roads all the way from the top of New England to the heart of Dixie, running past a wealth of fascinating towns and historic sites. In case you don't know, the Appalachian landscape holds some of the wealthiest and some of the neediest areas in the entire country. So, last year, I decided to take this trip again, for the 6th time. I grabbed my cat Miley and prepared for a multi-day journey. The story I'm about to tell you starts like almost every story does. It was a peaceful day. The trip was going wonderfully, and nothing indicated what was about to happen. The trip had only been going for 3 days, but I had decided to camp in one of the areas of Vermont's Green Mountains. I knew that area relatively well, and knew exactly where to set up, so I'd be seen by the fewest number of people. I knew that specific road was used by some people, but not many. It was an old dirt road, and 4 years ago, a new one had been built. I'd guess at least 90% of the people who used to take that road now use the new one. So, I knew I wouldn't see many people during the days I stayed there. I had set everything up the night before, and had a peaceful start to my day. Exactly how I wanted. I prepared lunch calmly, and we had reached that point in the day where all you want to do is nap. I knew I couldn't fall asleep. Not outside the van, at least. Otherwise, I'd be completely exposed and vulnerable. But I also didn't want to go inside and lose that glorious light filtering through the trees. So, I let myself drift in that state between consciousness and unconsciousness, dozing off. But around 3 p.m., something completely woke me up. I don't know exactly what it was, but Miley started acting restless, meowing several times until she saw me fully awake and alert. I thought she was just having one of her episodes where she desperately begged for food, even though she had eaten recently and was slightly above the recommended weight. I gave her just a little food, but she just stared at me. She didn't touch it. I was about to pick her up and cuddle her when, in the distance, I heard a car approaching. I looked toward the road, as I normally do. Nothing out of the ordinary, but as the car got closer, I started to feel an irrational fear take over me. I don't know what it was, but I knew I felt it. Then I looked inside the car. 3 men inside, all staring at me. I noticed the van slowed slightly as it passed me, and the men didn't take their eyes off me for even a second. The van passed, and something inside me knew I had to get out of there, no matter what. I know it might seem like a sudden decision to someone who has never been through something like this, but talk to any woman in your life, and you'll see she's been in a situation like this, where, without explanation, she just knew she was in danger. Without thinking twice, I grabbed my backpack, locked the van, picked up Miley, and put as much distance as possible between me and the van, hiding in the vegetation. I was right. Not even 2 minutes later, I saw the van approaching again. As it got closer, my heart started pounding harder and harder in my chest. The men had come back for me. I stayed completely still, not making a sound, trembling. All 3 got out of the car and calmly walked toward my van. They started rummaging through my things. One of them peeked inside the van, saying something to the others. I was far enough away that I couldn't hear what they were saying. Another man was already looking around, trying to spot me hiding somewhere. Then I heard a gunshot. I covered my mouth with my hand to keep from screaming. Miley started getting even more agitated, and I was terrified she would start meowing. One of the men had fired at the van window and already had his hand inside, trying to unlock the door. I felt my vision blur. A drop of sweat had trickled down my forehead and into my eye. I can't really explain it, but that made me get up and, as quietly as possible, start running. I tried to get as far away from the van as I could. When I felt I was at a safe distance and didn't hear footsteps behind me, I sat down, afraid my legs would give out, and took my phone out of my backpack. I was visibly shaking, and even opening the backpack and grabbing the phone was a challenge. I couldn't believe what I saw. The phone was off, dead. How had I not noticed? But the truth was, the last time I had looked at my phone screen was the night before. I knew the power bank would take some time to work its magic. Then I remembered that nearby, about a 30-minute walk away, there was a small gas station. If I hurried, I might get there sooner. I got up and started running. I was still trembling a lot, and my legs felt weak. But then, I heard a branch snap behind me, and as if I had been injected with adrenaline, I took off running. I didn't look back. I didn't know if they had found me. All I knew was that if I wanted to avoid the worst, I had to reach the gas station. I finally saw it in the distance, but when I got there, I can't describe the panic I felt. It was completely empty, and behind the counter was a man. In that moment, every doubt crossed my mind. What if he also had bad intentions? What if he knew the men and decided to hand me over? My mind was racing with doubts, but with no other options, I decided to take the risk. I walked into the station, still in a frantic state, and asked for help. He didn't hesitate. He seemed used to this kind of situation. He immediately called the police and told me to hide in the storage room. Shortly after, he came back and told me he had made the call and that help was on the way. He asked if I wanted a glass of water, but he didn't even finish his sentence before we heard a car pull up outside. We exchanged looks, both aware that it was most likely the same men from before. Without hesitation, he motioned for me to hide behind the freezer and placed a small gun in my hands, assuring me not to worry because he had a bigger one under the counter. As soon as he stepped outside to confront whoever was on the other side, I tried to calm Miley, who was in an even worse state than me. Outside, male voices echoed in an aggressive, hurried tone. Then, I clearly heard the voice of the man who had helped me, informing them he was armed and that the police were on their way. I don't know how long I stayed there, trembling and terrified. But fortunately, the police arrived and were great to me. They escorted me back to my van so I could grab some belongings. Then, they booked me a hotel room in town, ensuring I was safe. There was a cop stationed outside the hotel. 2 days later, I went back home. My parents came to get me. Since then, I haven't returned to that part of the country, and I haven't gone on another trip. Miley has become a fearful cat, constantly hiding from loud noises like slamming doors. I just hope that one day we can both overcome this trauma.